The cabin. Jonathan was driving through one of his favorite state parks one day after work and decided to pull off and go for a long afternoon hike. When he had walked about a mile, a raging thunderstorm suddenly rolled in, and Jonathan began to look for shelter. It wasn't long before he came across an old cabin just off the hiking trail. It seemed strange because Jonathan had hiked that same trail several times, and he had never remembered seeing a cabin there before. Regardless, Jonathan ran through the rain to the open door of the cabin. He slowly walked in and looked around. The place seemed like it was abandoned. Cobwebs covered most of the walls and ceiling. There was a staircase that went to a second floor, and in front of the staircase was an old reclining chair. In the corner of the room was a fireplace that Jonathan decided to try and start a fire in. After he had a fire going, Jonathan sat in the recliner, and before long, he had fallen asleep. Jonathan awoke a short while later to a loud thud from the floor above. What was that? He thought to himself. But before he could get up to investigate, Jonathan realized that the front of his shirt was wet. A dark stain had formed on his chest, and when he looked up, he could see something that looked like blood dripping from the floorboards above. Just then, a huge gust of wind blew in from the broken windows and blew the fire out. Jonathan sat in the darkness, terrified. Then he heard footsteps coming slowly down the staircase behind him. Jonathan sat still, frozen with fear, as the footsteps moved closer and closer. Then they stopped. Jonathan knew that whoever it could be was standing right behind him. He slowly raised his head and screamed. Jonathan found himself staring into the face of a moldy, rotting corpse. The skin was slowly peeling away from its face, revealing the bone underneath, and blood dripped from its open wounds. Jonathan jumped up and ran out the door of the cabin. He did not stop running until he reached his car. Raven. A rancher named Bill raised horses. He and his wife had made a lot of money raising and selling horses, especially those that came from a horse they had named Raven. Raven was a beautiful black stallion that had a pen all to his own. They also had another horse named Jenna, who they had bought around the same time that they had bought Raven. Jenna and Raven eventually formed a friendship that made the two inseparable. Wherever Raven went, Jenna followed, and vice versa. Bill's ranch was the envy of the countryside, and he had rejected a lot of offers from very wealthy men who wanted to buy it. It was a beautiful piece of property with a large field where the horses would graze. The only problem is that the field was right on the edge of a large cliff that overlooked a pretty deep canyon. But Bill built a fence around it so that the horses couldn't get too close to the edge. One day, Bill went out to feed Raven, but he found the horse laying on the ground as if it were sick. Bill had a vet visit the ranch, and sure enough, Raven had come down with a rare disease that the vet said wasn't contagious, but it killed quickly. Bill was told that Raven would not make it through the night. After Raven died, he buried the horse out in a far corner of the field. Jenna seemed so upset that Raven had gone that she would run around her paddock and cry through most of the night. Things went on that way for a while, until Jenna finally calmed down. After a while, Bill decided to take Jenna and another horse riding in the field. Bill would ride Jenna, and Bill's wife would ride this new horse they had just bought that needed to be trained. They saddled them up and trotted into the field. "How's she doing?" Bill's wife asked him. She had worried that after Raven died, Jenna would not be the same. "She's fine," Bill answered. "I think she's over it." Suddenly, Jenna stopped trotting. Her ears perked up, as if something was very wrong. "Hey now," Bill said to her. "What's wrong?" "Get going." Bill kicked her a little with the heels of his boots, but still, she didn't move. "What's wrong?" Bill's wife asked from up ahead. But before Bill could answer, Jenna reared up and then began to run. "Whoa, girl!" Bill yelled, pulling at the reins to get her to stop. But Jenna kept running. She ran faster and faster, and it seemed as though the more Bill fought her, the faster she ran. Bill did not know what to do. He had never seen a horse behave like this before, and he was starting to panic. Bill held onto the saddle as tight as he could, trying not to be thrown from the horse. It was then that he realized Jenna was in a dead sprint towards the edge of the cliff. He looked up and decided that he needed to jump off before Jenna ran them both into the fence. Bill was getting ready to jump off of Jenna's back when suddenly he saw a strange black horse standing on the other side of the fence. Bill let go of the saddle and fell to the ground. Then he sat up and watched as Jenna jumped over the fence and fell to the bottom of the canyon. Bill climbed over the fence and ran to the edge of the cliff. He saw Jenna's lifeless body at the bottom of the rocky ledge, a puddle of blood forming around her. "Are you all right?" Bill's wife said as she caught up to him. "I think so," he said. "Where did that black horse go?" "What black horse?" she asked. "The one that was just standing on the other side of the fence when she jumped," Bill exclaimed. Bill's wife looked at him as if he had gone crazy. She told him that she had not seen a black horse anywhere.
If you enjoyed listening to those but wanted to experience reading the stories for yourself, you should check out the link in the description because we have an Etsy page and David's book is on there. Now, in addition to all of his short stories and poems, this book also features some incredible artwork, so check it out.